Hey, how's it going? Jeff Jerina here, and welcome to the Men Unplugged show. On today's program, you'll hear from one of today's top Christian actors, Kevin Sorbo. He was the star of the TV show Hercules and played the lead role in the TV series Andromeda. On the big screen, he starred in movies such as Soul Surfer, God's Not Dead, What If, and his new movie, The Reliant. In this short episode, Kevin and I will be giving you some actionable steps that you can apply in your life today. With that said, get ready to plug in and recharge. But before we do, I want to give you a quick reminder to check out my new book, Faith Without Fear. Developed from a course I created in 2008, this book will help you share what you believe to anyone you come across at any time, anywhere. To learn more about the book and how it will help you remove your fears about sharing the gospel, impact the lives of others, and transform your life, visit menunplugged.net/faith without fear. When you're there, you'll be able to watch a new welcome video describing the book and a direct link to get your very own copy today. Again, that's menunplugged.net/faith without fear. Now, for the ultimate protection for you and your family on the internet and an exclusive free 30-day trial, go to menunplugged.net/eyes. That's EYES. All right, you ready to do this? Let's go. So the big question is this: how do we as warriors of Jesus Christ, men of God who want to stay battle ready, who want to honor the Lord, and who want to grow in our daily walk, unplug from those things that weigh us down so we can ignite our faith, strengthen our family, and ultimately succeed in every aspect of life? That is the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Jerina, and welcome to Men Unplugged. Hey, welcome back to Men Unplugged. I'm your host, Jeff Jerina. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I'm joined by actor Kevin Sorbo. Kevin, welcome to the show, brother.
It's good to be here. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to it. Men Unplugged. Love your title. Love the show, and let's rock and roll, man.
All right. So with that said, I love that you love the show. So are you ready to plug in and recharge?
I'm ready. I love to be recharged, and you're the guy to do it right now. So let's get this thing rocking.
Oh, man, that's a lot of pressure. I feel like I'm about to do a take here on a show or something. So before we kickstart the interview today, Kevin, I want to ask you just to take about a minute here and say something about yourself that most people don't know.
Well, as a family, we homeschool the kids. I'm an avid golfer, love to golf. Love to hit the links. I do a lot of it by myself. I'm an early riser. I love to get out there early in the morning and tee off before anybody else is out on the golf course. And it's really sort of my time. Talking about recharging, it's my time to just sort of be out there and get close to my dad, who passed away 7 years ago, because he taught me the game. It's a good place to sit there and talk to God and thank him for the beauty. I actually do a lot of praying. And not for a good golf game, but I do a lot of praying on the course as well, because it gives me a chance to sit there and say, to find the peace, to find the patience, to find the gratefulness and the things that have been handed to me in my life. So it's all pretty amazing. I love being out there with the birds and the trees and the grass, and it's just a nice escape from traffic and concrete, Well,
I'm with you on that. Now, I love playing golf too. Now, I'm not a scratch golfer. The lowest I've ever scored, Kevin, was an 80. So what do you usually go out there and hit?
That's a good game of golf, and you're right there with me. Depends on the day. I was a 1 handicap at one time. I'm a 5 now, but I'll be anywhere from 72 to 82. That's pretty much where I would say 85% of my game is somewhere in that range. Sometimes a little better, sometimes it's worse, but I'm pretty consistent. I actually played this morning early. I played 2 balls always. I play in about an hour and 40 minutes, 18 holes on a cart, and I have 1 ball go against the other one. And I had a 75 on 1 ball today and a 76 on the other. So I played pretty consistent today.
So wait a second. So you're playing 2 balls, and it took you less than 2 hours to finish 18 holes. Now, wait a second.
People waste a lot of time in the course. Trust me. I get up and hit the darn ball. I get up there when I'm walking up to the putt. I can already have a good idea where it's going to go and what's going to happen with it. So I don't need to walk around all 4 sides of it. And I can't play with slow golfers. If I play them once, I'll never play with them again. I don't care how good a guy they are. I just can't stand slow play.
Hey guys, this right here, this is a tip from Kevin Sorbo. Now, you're going to get a lot right now from the show, but look, not just an actor and not all these other things that you're doing, but look, he just gave you a golf tip. I'm going to actually have to take that. You basically did the na when you get on the green, right? That's what you're doing.
Just get up there and hit the ball. I think people play a lot better if they didn't sit there with all that fidgeting around the golf course. Just get up there and get it done. Be done with it. Move on.
There you go. I like that. Okay, so before we really get into the topics today here, there's a couple things we're going to talk about, but I want to ask you, Kevin, tell me about your story, your testimony of faith. How did you come to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Well, I grew up in a very religious family. We were Lutherans, typical Scandinavians in Minnesota. I'm 100% Norwegian. It was Sunday school in the morning, early in the morning, 8:00, and then I'd sit in church with my parents at 9:00. What I don't like seeing in a lot of churches today, a lot of times they remove the children and put them in Sunday school the same time the service is on. I think this should be family time. I think Sunday school's great, but we do enough in public schools where we separate families from their kids for 8 hours a day. At least have Sunday be with family. Sit in the pews, have a little patience, learn a lesson, and be with your family. And so I think that's important. But I had a very unique experience when I was 13 years old. Our church went to see the Reverend Billy Graham speak at St. Paul Fairgrounds there. There were a couple 100,000 people were there that evening. It was a hot August night in Minnesota, hot and humid, and the moon was out, and he asked people to come up and if they felt so inclined to go out and meet with some of his volunteers. And I don't know, I was just moved to go up there, and I sat down there and I was talking to one of the volunteers and hadn't gotten any prayer at that time. We were just talking, he was talking to me like a regular person, making me feel like I'm somebody. And all of a sudden a hand went on my head and I turned around and it was Billy Graham, and he put a blessing on me. And I'll tell you, that had a huge impact on me, just to feel that moment. So I've had faith all my life. I never really went around, got to an agnostic stage in my life, and certainly never got to an atheist stage in my life. But it's always been there as far as I can remember.
I love to hear that story, man, that you actually had a chance to go to the Billy Graham conference. I'd never had a chance to do that. I wished I had.
I got to tell you, I did a book with the Chicken Soup for the Soul people, and then they did a book with Billy Graham. It's the only time they ever did a hardcover book, and it was people had a story about Billy Graham. So I wrote my story, and I got to be one of the 101 chapters they put in there. Well, the Billy Graham people loved my story so much, they got a hold of me. And obviously, Billy Graham was well into his 90s and unable to travel, and he had his own health. So I was honored that they flew me around and did talk shows and radios to push the book, the Billy Graham book, for Chicken Soup for the Soul. It was a pretty cool thing to be part of.
That's fantastic. And you hit a chord here with me, is that as an evangelist, my first book, it's coming out. Actually, right now, you can purchase it now. It's called Faith Without Fear: How to Share What You Believe with Confidence and Power. And so Josh McDowell wrote the foreword for that book. And, one of the things for me is it's so big that you're talking about here, you went to this Billy Graham conference and you heard the gospel message, but there was an individual that helped you, that walked you through that. And my big thing here, part of what we do on the show, is to help men ignite their faith in Christ and to help them through that, help them understand that, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, what your past was, your story matters. And God wants us to share his story, the story of salvation.
So, Testament.
Yeah, absolutely. The Great Commission. That's what we're supposed to do. So let's dive into this, because that just excited me to hear that you did that. But let me ask you this about your story when they did that Chicken Soup for the Soul. What do you think they liked about your story? What was the specific component of it?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think maybe there was some humor in there. I think maybe they appreciated the humor in there because I turned to look, and as I mentioned, there was a full moon, and there his head was, blocking about 92% of the moon. The other 8% was around his head like this beautiful glowing halo.
Wow.
So I kept waiting for the music to be cued, to hear angels go, something. So I think they loved that little humor I threw in with it, because that was my memory is of that, which I thought was a pretty amazing thing.
Okay, so talking about here, we talked about you had a chance to meet Billy Graham, and actually through that led you to your personal salvation. So I want to ask you here, you said, okay, you never made it to the point of being agnostic, atheist, but you did play a part in the hit movie God's Not Dead, where you were the atheistic professor. And so I want to ask you, what was your experience like during that movie?
Well, I got to throw in the fact that I did another movie called Let There Be Light, where I play the world's greatest atheist. So I wasn't just your typical run-of-the-mill college professor atheist, which is running amok in our country. But in Let There Be Light, I play the world's greatest atheist. Think of Hitchens or Dawkins or something like that.
Right.
So if you get a chance to see that movie, I directed that movie as well. I recommend it highly. As much as I love God's Not Dead, I think Let There Be Light's a better movie. So
really,
I hope people get a chance to check it out. And it was in theaters for 3 months. We opened number 2 per screen average in box office against a $300 million Thor Ragnarok movie. So
wow,
I think it did pretty well, considering it didn't have a $100 million budget to promote it like Thor did. But I know people like that. I have friends who are atheists. Not that I took pieces of them, because they're not atheists that are angry all the time. These guys, we have great debates, we have great talks. I have agnostic friends as well. We have great debates, great talks. We still friends. I kind of took it from the people I see on the cable news. These guys that actually have clubs, they have atheist clubs that they have so much anger and hate towards something they don't believe in. I get a kick out of that. So maybe they should get that upset about the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that's a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted energy in your life. I mean, I have found that if you're an atheist, that's a stronger faith in Christianity. To believe in absolutely nothing,
right?
Boy, that takes a lot of faith, guys. It takes. So it's, to me, I like to put out movies that show that, there's something else out there, guys. No matter what you think, you and I didn't start everything or anything. So somebody had to start this, and it wasn't either you or me.
So when you did God's Not Dead and Let There Be Light, now you, in both of these roles, you're an atheist. How did that strengthen your faith in Christ?
I thought it was an amazing story, and I thought it was interesting to have the debates that they had in God's Not Dead, a perspective of both sides, really. And it was interesting to look at what the writers came up with and what they took. In fact, a lot of the stuff that they gave the students that I totally torment in the movie comes from a gentleman by the name of John Lennox. John Lennox is a very famous apologist. He's an retired Oxford math. And ironically, to document his life, we spent 2 weeks in Oxford and 2 weeks in Israel. And this documentary will be coming out next year. And it's called Against the Tide, which I think is a very perfect title for what's going on in our world, in our secular world, because the secular and atheist and agnostic tide is quite large and huge, and is trying to get rid of Christianity all around the world. Yet the Christian world is fighting back. The largest and fastest growing population of Christianity is happening in China and happening in Russia. And believe it or not, it's happening in the Middle East. A lot of Muslims are becoming Christians. It's pretty interesting to see what's going on in the world right now.
When you talked about the movement there in Christianity in China, Russia, and with Muslims, what I've seen when a former Muslim understands that God loves them, that it's by grace in Christ, when they fully get that, man, it's amazing just to see the shackles, the weight that's off of them, and how joyful they are. I mean, it truly is amazing.
The reason I love doing these movies, and I've got a number of them coming out. I've got 5 movies, including the Reliant, which we're going to talk about soon, which is the most recent one to come out, now coming out on DVD. I started doing these about 10 years ago. The first one is called What If? What If is the same writers that did God's Not Dead. Another one I think is a better movie than God's Not Dead. It's all about promotion. It's all about getting luck and good word of mouth, because we don't have $100 million to sit there and promote these wonderful movies. So it really comes down to finding an audience on opening weekend and finding the positive word of mouth for these independent movies. But I get stopped all the time by people, and it's not Hercules or Andromeda anymore, those 2 series they did. It's people that would say, please keep making more movies like you're making. I mean, there's 80 million households out there that want family-friendly, faith-friendly movies.
Right.
And Hollywood seems to be totally ignoring it for the most part. So we're just trying to do our little piece here to keep adding something more positive to the world. So That's the reason why I love doing these movies and love doing movies that have a good message.
So before we talk about The Reliant, talk about some of these other faith-based films that you've done, I want to ask you here, it keeps going on around in my head. I got to ask him about Hercules, the TV series. I got to ask him about Hercules. In fact, when that thing opened up, or when it started, I think it was 1993, that was, I was a junior in my undergrad in college. And I graduated my undergrad in 94, and I actually watched that, and I would watch it go, man, this is a pretty good show. And I didn't realize that for the whole time, you guys were like the #1 TV show in the country or across the globe.
A little bigger than that in the world.
Across the globe.
176 countries. We were the #1 TV show in the world. Yeah.
And that's probably why I was liking it, right? Because it was the best show.
You know what? It had humor. It had, it had mythology, but it had a lot of good, it wasn't preaching mythology as religion. But what it had, which I thought, my hat's off to the writers, they put a lot of morality in there. They put a lot of very good messages in there. And, that I think all those combination of things struck a chord with people.
So when you did that, that was actually your first break, right? That's when you really got on the scene as an actor. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that was my first big break, certainly. I mean, I'd done a lot of guest spots on shows prior to that. The Commish, Murder, She Wrote, Cheers, things like that. But I did a couple pilots that never got picked up for network, but that was the first thing that really took off for me and made me a household name for people that watch, TV.
So take me back to the first day, first week, or maybe even that first year, Kevin, on the set, as now you're the lead role as Hercules in the TV series Hercules. I want to know what was going on in your head at the time.
Well, I was grateful to even get it. I mean, they auditioned 2,800 actors in North America. They called me back 7 times before I got down to the last 3 guys and won the role. So it's easy. Just go to Hollywood. They give out roles that's like nothing. There's no big deal. There's no competition. But it was why we initially it was just going to be 5 2-hour movies, and then that was it. But it was a full year in New Zealand, and Anthony Quinn played Zeus. So I got to work with the late great Anthony Quinn, which is incredible. He played Zeus, and by the third movie, halfway to the third movie, I called my manager up and I said, "You know something, Beverly? I think they're going to make this a TV series." And she goes, "Really? Why?" And I said, "Because there's nothing like it on TV right now. There's nothing on like that has this kind of humor, has action, has visual effects, has all this stuff." And sure enough, about 3 weeks later, the studio called up and said, "You're staying down there. We love what we see. We're going to make it a TV series." So we did 1 hour of 2 movies, and we had 6 hours of 1-hour episodes. And by our third season, we passed Baywatch as the most watched show in the world. The studio wanted to go 3 more years on it, but then I got an offer within their parent company, the Sci-Fi Channel, to do another series called Andromeda. Right. And I was ready to move on and do something different. Andromeda was the first show written by Gene Roddenberry after the original Star Trek series was over back in 1969. So for me to play the first Captain Dylan Hunt after Captain Kirk, oh man, that was cool. I had to jump on that right away.
You had some pretty cool stuff here that you've done. Now, I want to ask you this though, before we talk about the Reliant movie and then kind of close it out with some tips here that you want to give the Men Unplugged community on how to succeed in certain aspects of life. I want to ask you, you look back on all the roles that you've done, Kevin, okay? Maybe even recent, and you go backwards 15, 20 years or however far you want to go back.
Yeah, I think every actor brings a bit of themselves to the roles they play. I think for me on Hercules would certainly have to be up there is I love humor. And I know I added more humor than the writers originally were putting in the series. And I did a lot of ad-libbing. And nothing to take away from the writers, but they actually started writing more themselves. So, because let's face it, we don't need people laughing at us on a show like that. You want people laughing with you, you know? Right. So, and I think that was the charm of the show as well. It was always a wink, wink thing with the audience. They were sort of in on every joke. So a lot of that was certainly myself as well. I'll go back to the What If movie. I think the What If movie, I play a guy that's definitely a Christian. And it isn't that he's not living a Christian life, but he's not living the perfect life. And we that's a tough thing to do to begin with. And none of us live the perfect life.
Exactly.
But, I think that role, I really love that movie. As I was going to say, I think if you have the PureFlix account, please check out What If. I'm sure you can get it on DVD somewhere. But that was a turning point for me in wanting to do more movies that had a good message in the Christian world. No question.
Hey, Men Unplugged, do you struggle with sharing your faith? Are you afraid at times to share the gospel? Do you worry that you'll say something wrong or that you're not qualified enough to share the hope of Christ with others? In Faith Without Fear, you'll overcome all these reasons and more when you learn how to simply share your faith in a simple, natural way. Ideal for individual or group study, you'll crush any fear that you have about sharing your faith, learn how to overcome the most common witnessing obstacles, and much, much more. So regardless of your age, vocation, or even your biblical knowledge, you'll be encouraged and equipped to share your faith with confidence and power. To learn more and get your copy today, go to menunplugged.net/faith without fear. That's faith without fear. Now, for the ultimate force field of protection against internet pornography, visit menunplugged.net/eyes. Now, as a Men Unplugged listener, you'll get a 30-day free trial on the ultimate shield on the internet when you use promo code Men Unplugged. Again, that's menunplugged.net/EYES. What is a lesson or lessons that you've learned in your life from your acting career that God has taught you, that where you can go, okay, I can apply this in my life today and going forward?
Well, I think it comes down to finding a place to be grateful for anything and everything you have in your life. I think a lot of people want to take the time to do that. And certainly in a career that's as competitive as Hollywood is, to have a career that lasts over 30 years in an industry that relies on rejection more than anything else, I'm incredibly grateful for the roles that I've gotten. I'm grateful for the things I've done. I mean, I've done 64 movies and documentaries,
Wow.
total. And there's probably, a dozen of those movies in there I wish I didn't do for whatever reasons. Maybe the part looked great at the beginning and turned out to be something a little different, or the movie just sucked when it was done.
Right.
So not everything's going to be golden, right? But when you're on the set all the time, I mean, to me, it's about putting miles on anyway. So I was grateful to just to stay busy, just to keep on working. I think that was that was something that just sort of made it worthwhile for me. I think that was just, I tell people, I said, I learned this from a guy that I met years ago, where he asked me if I was religious. And I said, yeah, I am. He said, well, you don't have to be for what I'm about to tell you. It helps. But he said, there's a thing called the grateful prayer. And I tell people they should do this all the time. You can do it in 1 second. You can do it in 1 hour. I mean, you can be stuck in traffic in your car and just take the time while you're driving, instead of getting aggravated, just to be grateful that you have a car, be grateful that you have a pillow, be grateful you have hot water, be grateful. A lot of people just, we are so impatient, filled with angst and anxiety and anger and hate and frustration for a number of different reasons. I think you just got to find a place where, hey, my life ain't that bad. So
Right.
Why don't I just take a deep breath, look around and go, I got a place to live. I got the sun is out. I mean, I'm grateful for this, and we got to find that in our world today.
Amen. And one thing that we should always be thankful for every day is our salvation that we have in Jesus Christ. So let's talk about the movie, The Reliant. And actually, I had one of your co-stars here on the Men Unplugged show about a week and a half ago, Brian Bosworth, and he just spoke really highly of you. And he said, Kevin even said I did a good job. He felt really good about that. So talk about the Reliant movie.
It deals with the economic collapse of America. There's rioting that breaks out. There's looting. A lot of these things that we see in the movie are happening right now in our country.
Right.
You got these Antifa punks that are going around. They're wearing masks. I don't even know how they're able to get away with what they're getting away with. I don't get it. I mean, number one, you shouldn't be allowed to cover your face and cover your identity while you're out there with baseball bats and tire irons, and you're going crazy on the local populace. I mean, I saw a video recently where they stopped two 80-year-olds, a couple, a woman and her walker, from crossing the street. Yeah.
Wow.
At least do anything about it in Portland. It's insanity. They call themselves they're against fascism when they're actually the ones who are being the fascists. I mean, it's just sick. There's something else going on behind this that isn't quite out on that. But that's what this movie deals with. It deals with that kind of anger and hatred,
Right.
and the rioting and looting, like I mentioned. And there's a family, Brian Bosworth and I had met like 5 or 6 years earlier when something happened to his daughter at my hospital. And it wasn't my fault. It was the fault of his own. And he targets my home to get revenge, and with a group of people firing at us. Well, then we got guns too, because even though they're a family of faith, they're also a family that believes in the Second Amendment that to protect themselves. And so they fire back. So it creates a whole different dynamic. And they were going, wait a minute, this isn't a gun-free zone. We don't like this, the bad guys say,
Right.
So it definitely has that pro-Second Amendment in there. And the reality is, when our forefathers put that into the Constitution, there was a reason behind it. And the main reason was to protect itself against a crazy government. I mean, they know we just fought a revolution against the strongest empire in the world, the British Empire at that time, and we defeated them with basically nothing compared to the weapons that they had. And the founding fathers said, this could happen to America one day too. So we're going to put this in. It has nothing to do with hunting. It has to do with protecting the family. And I have to ask this for people who are against that. If someone breaks into your house and has guns and starts shooting away your family members, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
You're not going to call the cops because the cops aren't going to get there in time. The coroner will get there in time, but the cops won't.
Exactly.
And then you would do if you didn't have a weapon, you would throw irons, you would throw lamps, you would do anything you can and fight to your death. If you realize it's my life or that guy's life, you would.
And it's not, you're right. It's not gun control. It's gun responsibility, I think, is the bigger question. That's the biggest issue to me, right? That's how I see it.
Yeah. No question. No question about it.
Because you can have all the gun controls in the world, and we see people talk about this all the time, but if you're not responsible with them, then the control has no bearing. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. It's just, but it's what we're dealing with right now in this angry world. But I look at the hypocrisy out there as well. Hollywood comes out there and Hollywood stars come out there every time there's a shooting somewhere, and yet another gun-free zone. Because face it, these cowards, these punks will never go into a building if they knew there's a big sign, this building has a lot of people with guns. They're not going to go in there. They're going to go in where the soft targets are. It happens every single time. So these are the same celebrities that do movies with guns.
Right.
So they need to start walking the walk too. And and just being more, walk the walk. Okay, if you guys are against this, then start doing your movies. Every single movie out there, whether it's an Avengers movie or whether it's a cop movie or whether it's any kind of action movie, they're killing a lot of people with guns, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. So when you got the script for this, were you like, okay, I can relate with this guy because you have a family, you're married, you have a family of, you have 3 kids. In fact, you met your wife, I think I heard you say one time, on the set of Hercules, which that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's how we met. Yep.
Hey, there's one for Hercules, right?
There you go. 22 years later and 3 kids. We're still together.
So you can relate with that as a husband and as a dad, that, hey, what would I do if this actually happened?
Well, in real life, my house is filled with guns. We are all licensed, registered gun owners. And yeah, you bet. If somebody tried to come to my house, I'm going to go down with a fight. I'm not going to let them do anything to my family as far as I have a say in it.
Well, there you go, guys. Don't go to Kevin's house. Not that they would anyway, but just don't. So what do you think the Lord is teaching you right now? What is it that's really he's speaking to you, saying, okay, Kevin, I want you to get this?
Well, this is that we're trying to start a studio. We're trying to get our own studio going. That's going to be a Sorbo family studio. It's going to be movies with a positive message, movies with hope, movies with faith, movies with redemption, movies that'll make you laugh, make you cry, make you stand up and cheer. And that's what we're trying to put together right now. I just got back from a 2.5-hour meeting with a group of Christian investors here that to see how we can work together. So hopefully with the help of God, we can make this. The reality is politics is downstream of culture, Hollywood, along with the mainstream media. What are the messages that they're putting out? They're not putting out a very positive message. So we're trying to do movies that have a positive message and positive impact on people.
Let me ask you this. Give the Men Unplugged community, if you could, before we say goodbye, one parting tip of wisdom.
One parting tip of wisdom. Here it is. Don't let anyone set your limitations. People live way too much in fear. They don't want to follow the road that they should be going on. They just want to follow the masses. Be your own person, and don't be afraid of failure. Failure is a good thing. It's not a negative thing.
Kevin, thank you so much for being on the Men Unplugged show today. It was truly an honor and a blessing.
Thank you. And people can go to kevinsorbo.net.
All right, that wraps up today's show. Before you go, I just want to give you two final reminders here. Here's the first reminder. To find out more and get your copy of Faith Without Fear, go to menunplugged.net/Faith Without Fear. Now, like I said earlier in the intro, you're going to see a welcome video about the book. You're also going to find out what top Christian leaders have said about the book and what early readers have said about the book, how it's impacted them and how it's impacted others. Now, again, that's menunplugged.net/Faith Without Fear. And to help us with our daily budget, which includes the cost of production, content, research, and creation, as well as multiple hosting platforms, advertising, marketing, and really a lot more, simply click the donate button on any page of our website for your one-time or recurring support. Until next time, stay plugged in and recharged. God bless.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more to see at menunplugged.net, including key resources and ways to engage with Jeff in his training and speaking forums. While there, don't forget to subscribe and receive a free gift. We look forward to you joining us next time here on the Men Unplugged Show.